Alright, so I wanted to make a video today on how to light an alcohol stove. And one of the first things I realized is, whoa, there's a lot of different alcohol stoves out there. And I wanted to kind of help people to understand, well, what are the big major types of stoves. So if I simplify this a little bit, the most basic type of stove is just this kind of open canister stove. So you've got here a tea light. Here is just a piece of aluminum or titanium that has been folded up into kind of this muffin looking thing, and then this is in a commercial flat cat stove, flat cat gear stove that's very, very durable and very tough. But all of them have the same basic idea that they're just open canisters. Even the ion stove. These are all basically open canisters. You put fuel in it, you light it, and it burns. And that's about it. With other types of stoves, you have pressurized stoves, where you need to let the fuel heat up the stove inside, and then they've got these little jets in them, and the flames will actually come out of the jet. So that's a pressurized stove. And then typically what you do is you will, especially this kind of beer can stove, you will put your pot straight on top like this, and so if you don't let it heat up enough and you put the pot on top, you'll just snuff out the flame. So you have to let it heat up enough, and then these jets will come out the sides of the can, and then when you put it on top, it becomes pressurized and it shoots out flames, and it works really, really well. So you have to kind of know what your stove is. There's lots and lots and lots of different styles out there, so just make sure you know which one you're using before you use it. Okay, so I'm going to show you how each one of these lights up, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so I want to start with one of the simpler ones, like the open canister stoves. These little tea light stoves are actually pretty cool. They just don't hold very much fuel, so they don't last very long. But it'll boil a cup and a half of water, maybe. So here's the stove. Now, one of the things you always want to do, of course, when you're using an alcohol or any kind of stove out in the backcountry, is some sort of heat reflector, and also a place for, if fuel does spill, for it to burn on top of without it burning the actual material around it. And then with these open canister stoves, you can't just place the pot right on top like that. You have to use some sort of pot support. So I just have this hardware cloth that I use. It's pretty easy. And then the pot just sits right on top of that. But the pot is above the stove. And here, I'll lower this down so you can see what I'm talking about. But you can see that there's a space between the bottom of the pot and the top of the stove. And that's important. Alright, so let's get some fuel in here. Got about a half an ounce of fuel in there, and in order to light it, so you just pour your fuel right into the cup. To light it, you just put a match in there, and that's burning, and then you put your stove on top, and there's no priming needed, so immediately you can go from being lit to putting your pot on. And then I'll turn off the lights and show you what that looks like. Alright, so you can see that with this kind of stove, you have the flames coming out. They do tend to go out to the edges of the pot, and so different types of stoves like this will work better for different types of pots. So this is a pretty narrow pot, and so you can see the flames coming up over the sides of the pot right now. And that's totally fine, but it will reduce your efficiency a little bit. It keeps it from being quite as efficient. Without a pot on it, I thought I would just show you what it looks like. The flame does come right up the center, but as soon as you put the pot on, that big flame gets spread out and takes up the whole bottom of the pot. Okay, the last kind of stove I want to show you is a pressurized stove, and it has little vents that come off the side here. And so you'll put the alcohol inside the stove, just like usual. And you'll light it just like usual. However, you have to let it prime first. What's interesting about this kind of stuff too is that you don't have any kind of pot stand. Now, if I just put this right on top right now, let's say I might have waited long enough. You can see it's not lighting all the way around, but I do have that little bit along the side there. So if you let it go for a little bit, it will start to light up around the outside. You can see the vents around the outside going. There you go, they're almost all lit now. Just a couple more. Sometimes you can wave your hand and get the other ones lit. There we go. And then you put the pot on top, and it still burns out those little vents on the side. Now this particular one is definitely designed for a wider pot. You can tell because the flame is coming all the way up the side of the container. But you don't. One of the things that's nice about this is you don't need an extra pot support. So pressurized canisters are really nice in that regard, but you do have to let them prime up a little bit before you put them straight on top. Otherwise, they will go out or they'll never really light up very well. So this is a pressurized canister. Pressurized canisters, alcohol stove versus an open canister. So whether you need a pot stand or not, typically the way you know if it's pressurized or not is if you put the stove right on top, or you put the pot right on top of the stove, it's a pressurized system. And you'll know pretty fast if it goes out. So that's how to light an alcohol stove. And if you have any questions, please post them. Otherwise, come check out my blog at www.backcountrycuisine.net. Take care all, and see you later, and eat well.